Hello, my name is Chrissy Mackey, and I'm currently working on a dissertation, a qualitative dissertation in the field of industrial and organizational psychology, focusing on the participants' perception of their ability to transfer skills from the game Dungeons and Dragons into the real world. So let me go ahead and get started with what I have to share with you today. So as you can see, I have a poster here for your enjoyment. Basically, the literature that exists currently has been since the 1950s, and it's been a review of computer-based games and applications for developing leadership skills and other various and sundry skills. In about 1955, I believe it was, Shubik began an experiment in which he was using business school management students and computer games to teach them the management skills that they would need to use in business. And it was a longitudinal study. So he followed these students plus others over about a 10-year period, I believe it was, and discovered that computers and computer gaming definitely assisted in helping people develop their skills. From there, as computer technology and internet connectivity progressed, we ended up into a realm called MMORPGs. And MMORPG stands for Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. And probably the best known one of those is World of Warcraft. And World of Warcraft has been used in many a different research setting to study the effects of human behavior on the environment and skill transference and leadership as it applies to running a successful player guild versus being in a business setting as a project manager, things like that. Dr. Nikki Yee is one of the people who pioneered that kind of study in basically in industrial and organizational psychology. There are numerous papers from 2004, I believe it was, when there was the corrupted blood pandemic going on in World of Warcraft. It was a programming error, but they used the time that they had available to them to actually log in and study how the disease spread. And epidemiologists were able to find the missing component for this spread of disease that actually contributed directly to how epidemiologists were predicting the spread of COVID-19 over the past year and a half. So games are very important and very fundamental to helping us develop skills and learn and develop skills and leadership ability, project management ability, things of that nature. The specific problem that I'm trying to address is there seems to be a lack of research, a lack of information in general on the participants' views and feelings of how this works. We can look at it from a quantitative standpoint and see the numbers and say, yes, this works. We can see that this works. The numbers are increasing, the numbers are decreasing depending on what we're trying to study. We can see that games work. But just because the numbers say one thing doesn't mean that participants feel the same way. If I can put this into a medical context, I know from my own experience with multiple autoimmune disorders, I can tell my doctors how I'm feeling, but my numbers don't necessarily represent what I'm feeling. And which do you go by? Do you go by how the patient feels, or do you go by the numbers? In my particular case, my doctors like to go by the numbers. It's very frustrating. But if we can take that kind of an experience and put it into our behavioral sciences fields, we can start to examine if what we're seeing in the numbers is something that's actual, or if it's not supported by the participants who are managing to make the numbers, but are they making the numbers because they believe that what they're doing is how they're supposed to do it, or are they doing it because they think it's the right answer? And it would be interesting to study longitudinally the development of skills and the perception of skill transference in a group of people over a period of, say, 5 years. I don't have that kind of time. I would like to graduate. So I am just looking at it at a very short period of time in a case study situation. Because of the novel SARS-CoV-2 virus, it's kind of thrown a monkey wrench into pretty much everybody's plans and everybody's way of life. I know that my husband is working from home, and he's actually doing better in working from home than he was working in the office. And that's not necessarily true of everybody, but we're starting to see things that industrial and organizational psychologists have been saying for years, saying, look, the evidence is here, but now we get to see it on a global scale. And I'm not saying that my research is going to be able to be put onto a global scale, but I like to think of the possibility that we can come together, even in a non-physical setting, to play these games and to learn from each other and to develop skills that we wouldn't necessarily be able to develop outside of, not necessarily playing games, but outside of our normal cognitive functioning in training and development. So the questions that I'm looking to address are: how do participants describe their ability to transfer learned skills from the game to their working lives? And how do participants describe the significance of their ability to transfer learned skills from the game to their working lives? Now, this is a very, very simplistic setup, because what we're going to do is I'm going to recruit a total of 8 people so that there are backups. 4 of them are going to play 5 sessions of Dungeons and Dragons. The intake questionnaire that I'm going to give them will ask them questions like what their experience level is, what skills specifically from the list of, I believe there's 8, that they want to work on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have those skills incorporated into the game sessions for them to work on during the game sessions. So for example, if somebody wants to work on their communication skills, I will make sure that they have at least 5 opportunities during the session, any given session, to work specifically on communication skills. And that could be, they need to persuade a guard to let them pass. They need to give an update to their faction leader on the progress of their quest, different things like that. And we're going to work those into the sessions so that they have a chance to develop that skill. And I'm sure you're probably thinking, well, how do you develop communication in a game of Dungeons and Dragons? It's very easy. You have several skills, one of which is, we're just going to use persuade. And you use this skill by telling your game master, your dungeon master, that you would like to persuade the guard to let you pass without fighting them. Great, your dungeon master says, go ahead and persuade me. And you make the person tell you exactly what they would say to the guard to get him to let them pass. Now, the caveat to all of this is you do still have to roll a 20-sided die. And depending on what you roll determines whether you succeed or fail. However, it's not necessarily about the success or failure of the persuasion. It's about the persuasion. It's about the skill for persuasion. At the end of the game, we can do a breakdown and address the different skills that we worked on and basically do, not a follow-up, well, I can't think of the word, so we're just going to move on. But I'm stuck on trying to think of the word. So you're going to do a, I know you know what I'm trying to say. When you go over everything and break it down and make sure that everybody's on the same page with what you've just done. I want to say it starts with an F, but I can't honestly remember. So I'm just going to move on and call it a morning. So we're going to do this over Zoom, and I'm only going to record the voices over Zoom. They don't need to use their cameras. I want this to be as anonymous as possible. We're going to use a program called Roll20, which is Google's tabletop simulator. Word processors are going to be used for all journal entries that my participants will be giving me. And in vivo is what I'm going to use for transcription and coding. So these are just kind of the tools of how we're going to put everything together and what we're going to do. It's an exploratory case study, and it's going to focus on the perception of 4 participants' viewpoints of how the skill transference goes. I wish I could edit my cat out, but he's very vocal and he says hello. Anyway, it's going to focus on how the participants feel and describe their own experiences and their own perception of the significance of their ability to transfer these skills. Each participant is then going to have a single 60 to 90 minute in-depth interview, semi-structured interview with me after the 5 sessions. And we're going to discuss, how they felt about everything, what they feel going forward, and just kind of make determinations and glean information from basically a conversation setting. I think this research is important because, like I said earlier, we know quantitatively that games work. We know quantitatively that role-playing works, but we don't know qualitatively if the people we are testing are able to continue that transference and able to continue seeing the link between the game that they're playing and the real world setting. It's a different skill set altogether, and some people have it and some people don't. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this pans out. If you have any questions, my contact information is on the poster in the bottom right-hand corner. And I would be happy to answer any and all questions that you may have. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Sorry about my cat.